Ain't No Shame in Our Game, Part 2. It's episode 28 of For Our Edification. Thank you for downloading this episode of For Our Edification. You can check out For Our Edification wherever you get your podcasts. And also check out past episodes at eddiefrancis.com. Make sure that you download those episodes and you rate them, you share with friends, and give us some feedback too. We'd love to get your feedback. Okay. Halima and I had a great conversation going about there being no shame in the struggle. This is part 2 of the conversation. Let's jump right back in. The views and opinions expressed on For Our Edification do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the hosts, guests, or any entities with which we are affiliated. No, it makes sense though. And it makes sense because I remember the first time I talked to somebody. And I was standing in a room with him, and he was the leader. He was the leader. He was the school principal, and I was standing in the room with him at his school, and stuff was just off kilter, and the students were all over the place. And he goes, "I operate best in chaos," and I was like, "Yeah, but look at them. They're not operating well in chaos, you know." So stop making it about you. You need to stop and take a look at what's happening around you, because this is not good. What's happening around you, and I have this thing. I mean, me with my narcissism study, but I mean, one of the things, people who are self-absorbed, they like chaos. And I think one of the reasons they like chaos is it's as good an opportunity as any for them to do the things that they want to do, because everybody else is all over the place. And this really does tie into the topic, because if you're somebody who is struggling with yourself, like if you're struggling with some kind of feeling of guilt or shame, and you're in a chaotic environment, and you can't focus on you just can't focus on what's really happening, and you can't be present in the moment, then chaotic environments can be really harmful, because every time something doesn't go right, you start asking yourself, oh, what did I just do? Why, what, or why are they blaming everything on me? And people may not be blaming anything on somebody who feels that way, but if the ball is in their, if the ball is in their vicinity and is bouncing all over the place, I think a lot of people, and I'm going to say that I have been in this space before where I felt guilty or shameful about my work, thinking I wasn't doing good enough. And I was in a chaotic environment, and I was getting frustrated with myself because I couldn't stop the ball from bouncing.
Right.
But the reality of the fact is that I was dealing with a bunch of people who like to bounce balls all over the damn place. And they did it because it was fun for them. And you're sitting there going, this may be fun for you, but this isn't fun for me. And I can't stop and think. I can't stop and think long enough to pull myself together and to do with the job that needs to get done, because I'm constantly trying to figure out if it's my fault, and the other thing is that if I've been in this space where I wanted to hold myself accountable, and the pendulum swung into shame. And I'm sitting there going, no, I should have some kind of control of this situation. Well, the reality, the thing that I've had time to reflect on is people who like chaotic environments don't necessarily care who needs time and space to have self-control, because they're like I said, they're having fun bouncing the balls all over the place, and they're just like, like gremlins.
I have a little bit of a different, well, I agree with what you're saying, and I have another perspective. So
Ooh,
if you
what's that?
if you if you go into a room that's junky and chaotic and clothes are all over the place, and there are things you can't see, right? So you can't see the floor because it's clothes covering the floor. You can't see, and thereby you may not be able to see a stain on the floor. So I do think that sometimes when there are spaces that are overly chaotic, or people who operate in a space of constant chaos, it can also hide some significant vulnerabilities. It can hide some areas of weakness. It can hide some things that need to be strengthened. And
so you're saying that they also may be trying to hide something.
They might be trying to.
Okay.
They might be trying to protect or hide something.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And when you're I've worked in the nonprofit sector, and of course colleges and universities, and the most chaotic times I would notice in nonprofit organizations are around fundraising initiatives. So when a grant is due, a big grant is due, when a report is due that's tied to some funding, when a board meeting is coming up. So there are these points where there are these accountability points is what I'm getting to. And everybody will be looking for everything, and we got to hurry up, and we got to and it's like a fever pitch.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. And you can't possibly, and your team can't possibly be as thoughtful as they need to be to perform at peak efficiency when it's chaotic like that in those high stress moments. So you're bound to make mistakes. You're bound to overlook something. You're bound to struggle to perform and get things done. And it can distract or take away from what the infrastructure challenges might be. So the issue might be we need a system that makes sure that all the information that we need is there, at the touch of a button. We can access it. We should have tracked the data better. We should have analyzed the data better throughout the process. And then we wouldn't have to deal with this.
Right.
And so following the chaos, so I talk about a chaos clock and we joke about this, but
I completely forgot about the chaos clock.
Yeah. So
oh yeah.
So I've observed this in situations that it's a cycle. Like it's like the chaos, the fever pitch, the challenge. We get through it. And then there's this kind of slump of, okay, we got to go into either recovery, or there's a period of like heavy shame and heavy just heaviness, where no one is feeling good about themselves, because though we got through the moment of chaos and though we got through the chaotic situation, we didn't show up in the best way that we could have shown up. So it produces kind of this ongoing kind of ugly cycle of, I feel bad about myself, or I feel bad for who I am, or I feel inadequate, or I feel like I can't do, to situations where I can't be positioned to thrive, or I'm not positioned to thrive. So I think about that, and it's particularly relevant for the field that I teach in, is public administration, to recognize the culture of your organizations.
Yeah.
And so does your culture have a culture that empowers? Is it a culture that constantly seeks to bring the best out of people? Is it a culture that is constantly looking to give people the skills that they need to do the best that they can possibly do? Are you the type of leader that is advancing a culture that seeks to remove barriers? So I consider a significant part of my job to remove barriers for the people who work for me. That was something I had to really begin to understand as a responsibility. And once I start removing barriers as much as I can, so I get them training if they need training, if they need more time to do things that they have to do, I figure out ways to remove things from their schedule, and look at how the workflow and the workload is distributed. If there's a particular area where I see they have a talent and they can thrive, I put them in that situation where they can thrive, because everything is not everybody's ministry. So you don't put your team in situations where the likelihood of them not doing well is increased.
Right.
You try to find ways for them to do well. And this goes back to that ethos of or that issue of shame. So if your organization has this ethos of punitive, shameful, guilty, like all of those negative things, that embeds your work and it embeds what you produce. And
and the concept of accountability becomes weaponized, as opposed to accountability being used to just keep everybody on track.
Right, exactly. Like keeping everybody on track. And so the same conversations I have within my work, I have with myself, because I have goals and I have dreams and I have things that I want to achieve, and I just fundamentally believe that putting myself and putting those around me in positions where they can thrive and excel, it makes for a better operations personally, and it makes for better operations of organization.
Yeah. And it is really fascinating to it really is fascinating, when you take a look at organizations that are used to operating in chaos, and not to pick on them, but I've worked at 3 HBCUs, and one of the unfortunate things about HBCUs is that a lot of them are used to working in chaos, and is lack of resources because of underfunding or whatever else is going on. So you usually have one person trying to handle so many different types of tasks. And then, in New Orleans, Dillard, Suno, Xavier, those three get hit with a natural disaster, and then it's and the thing is that unfortunately those 3 HBCUs have to live every single year with the distinct possibility that they're going to get hit hard. And now you can add, and of course it's not just those 3, because you got Bethune-Cookman, Florida Memorial, and FAMU, although not so much FAMU sometimes, but because of the locations, Bethune-Cookman and Florida Memorial, they live with the same thing with hurricanes. And so, and Bethune-Cookman got hit really bad last year.
Right. Yep.
And so what happens in those situations, and I've seen this, you're already operating in chaos because everything is an emergency. And the people in the organization, and it's not being done deliberately, but the people in the organization are getting beaten up. And it's not that somebody is beating them up, the situations are beating them up.
Yeah.
And I remember telling somebody who was new to one of the institutions, they were just raring and ready to go. And I'm like, listen, we have to deal with this natural disaster thing every single year. The possibilities slow down because you're going to need that energy when it hits. And, but those of us who had been through it, we knew how to save our energy, and we knew how to slow ourselves down, slow our breathing down, slow our thinking down. We knew how to do that. I mean, I just remember watching, when I was at Dillard, watching the team perform after Hurricane Ida, and watching, the vice president, who was the vice president of enrollment at the time, my dear frat brother, David Page, he was sitting in his car on a call. His power was out. And he's having to take this call in his car, and he's on this virtual town hall meeting answering questions in his car on his phone. His battery is going down, but he was as cool as he could be, and it was at that. And I already he's my frat. I already like David, but I really admired him in that moment because I'm sitting there going, how many people can do that? And then just watching how everybody else on the team was just so graceful in how they handled everything that came along with Ida and the aftermath of Ida. But if you have people who every time one little thing happens, they they turn up when one little thing happens, then you already have these people on your team who are vulnerable just by nature of being at that institution. They're vulnerable. And so what happens is that all this stuff happens, just an everyday, thing might happen, or something worse like active shooter or something like that. Then what happens in those kinds of situations is that if you have people in the environment who are unfortunately used to beating themselves up, they're used to feeling guilty and ashamed, then it doesn't do them any favors. And what winds up happening is that they wind up looking to the leaders for security, and they're just, they're looking. I was a director at the time. My team was looking at me to say, it's going to be all right. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And what I used to always tell my team was, this is rough. What I need y'all to do is I need you to rest. When it's time to rest,
take care of yourself.
I need you to rest, because we're going to have to get back up tomorrow morning, and we're going to have to hit it
all over again.
And we're going to have to do it all over again. So between 8 and 5, we are going to have to work hard, and it is going to be aggravating, and we're going to have to work probably until 9 p.m. When it's over, I need you to rest.
Yeah.
And I found that one of the questions, I'm sorry, but I found that one of the questions that was really hard for them to answer, back to your point, one of the questions that was hard for my team to answer was, what barriers can I remove? Because they had never had anyone ask them that question. And I had to actually had to help them understand what I meant by that. Because I just didn't want them to feel, bad if something didn't go right. And last thing, the unfortunate thing about working in marketing and communications is that when something doesn't go right, everybody sees it.
Yeah.
And so I felt that I had to protect my team a lot of times and say, hey, listen, if we mess up, it's going to happen because we're human beings. But if we mess up, we're going to have to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and start all over again and correct it and move. And that's just it. And we're going to have to leave that mistake behind. And we don't need to blame each other. We don't need to blame ourselves. We can hold ourselves accountable for doing better, but we don't need to turn this into, dang it, why can't we do anything right? That's the place I didn't want my team to go ever.
Yeah. And playing the blame game, and you're right that the shame and the guilt piece, it straps energy, like it just saps energy from people, especially in moments where you need to be present, and sometimes it gets debilitating. Like I was reading an article, we were talking to someone who talked about a friend of theirs who was a firefighter in 9/11, and they happened not to be at work that day, or something happened where their team responded to 9/11 and they weren't there, and that person still today lives with the guilt of the lives that were lost because they weren't there. And they survivor's guilt, right? So that is that happens in multiple contexts, and it happens in our personal lives. Like we carry guilt about what we lose things, and we carry guilt about losing things.
The inside joke is that I lost something recently and I was pretty upset about losing it. But yeah, go ahead.
And we make mistakes, and we carry guilt about that, and it becomes shame. And the key though is to reset, to bounce back, to to recognize what could have been done better and build on that, so that you are built, so the next time this decision point comes, you have a basis that you've better equipped yourself with either the language or the tools or the processes to do it better next time. Yeah. So then, corrective action doesn't become the punitive, you didn't do this right conversation. Mm-hmm. It becomes, how do we do this better next time? Yeah. What tools do you need to do this better next time? The outcome was not the outcome that I wanted. It wasn't the outcome that's up to the standard of our work, but what do we need to do it better next time? Because this is going to happen again. We're going to experience this again. If you're working in a space where there are things like at this point, you can count on that, some kind of a natural disaster happening again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how next time can we, and it's a concept of learning organizations. You do the same thing as an individual. So you learn as a person, how do you do it better next time? You learn as an organization, how do you do it better next time? You structure processes and give yourself resources and tools to make sure that the next time you don't sap energy from people by putting them in that loop. And then there's the issue of fatigue. Like, fatigue is real. There were people, I mean, I heard about it, all of us heard about it during COVID, where they were just tired. Like they couldn't really find the space to be still and to give themselves rest and to take a break. And we are human, we're not robots. So we need that space. We need time to recuperate. There's this, I've been following on Instagram for a while, the nap ministry. I love the nap ministry. I am a faithful tithing member of the nap ministry. But it's a concept of really giving yourself space and room to rest, to rejuvenate, and also to dream and to envision, because one of the things I would love to see for society overall is that we figure out ways to to tap into just our natural creativity, our innate creativity. And I think that if we give ourselves room to do those things, then a lot of the challenges we see can be resolved in a pretty sustainable way. If we give ourselves room, and there's a book, I was looking for it, I have it here somewhere, but it talks about radical dreaming and radical imagination. And another kind of foundational is Freedom Dreams, the Black Radical Imagination by Robin D.G. Kelley. But imagining the society and the world and the life and the goals and the dreams that you want to see, and this is at a personal level, world level, work level, whatever level you feel like it's relevant, giving yourself that space and room to dream of what you want to create is immensely powerful. And shame it turns the dream into a nightmare. Yeah. It turns it. It's like the sand that what was that that holiday movie with Jack Frost and the Easter Bunny.
Is it Rise of the Guardians? No, what is it?
I think it was something with the Guardians. Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
I'll look it up. I think it's Rise of the Guardians.
The Sandman would come in and he turned little kids' dreams.
Yeah, that's Rise of the Guardians.
Yeah, Rise of the Guardians. And the nightmare guy, the Sandman, would come in. Kids are having great dreams about running, frolicking through meadows and whatnot. And then the Sandman comes in and he turns it into a nightmare where like a horse attacks him or something crazy like that. So that's what shame does. It attacks your ability to dream. It attacks your ability to realize your dreams as well. So, you know, I really am glad that I've been able to take the time for myself to process those things. And you know, and I set my intentions. Like every birthday, I get closer to milestone birthdays. And if I'm blessed and fortunate, I will have many, 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 many more birthdays. So this phase of my life, I'm really thinking intentionally about how I want the remaining years of my life to look. And what I want it to be. Like, I want to frolic a lot. I want bubbles. I want butterflies. I want flowers. Like, I want beauty around me. I want music. I want laughter. I want joy. Notice none of those things included anything dealing with job outcomes. But, and it's not to say that a job or work won't be a part of that, but I'm seeking a different dimension of fulfillment out of the rest of my life. So everything is purpose driven. Everything is geared in that direction of just living my best life and bringing my whole self to the things that I do and what I experience and to the people around me.
You have been talking about frolicking a lot lately.
I love frolicking. I saw a video again. Instagram is good for something. So I saw a video of Black boys frolicking in a field, and I was like, "This is the man."
Yeah, that ain't gangster. We don't do that.
It was just, and it was like the sun shined brighter, the grass was greener. You know, those moments where people just have joy. Like I saw the video on LinkedIn where NYU had the prison program graduation. And yeah, there's debate about the finances and all those other things. What caught me was the joy. The joy of those families, the joy of the inmates who, for whatever reason, were where they were. They got that moment of joy being able to graduate with an associate's degree from NYU. Like that joy has this just amazing healing and creative power. So I just want joy. That's what I'm pushing for in at every level. So
okay, hold on.
Sorry.
Deliver more joy to Halima. All right. It's on the list.
And I told you how to get there. Bubbles, butterfly.
No, the Instagram post you talking about was hilarious. It was this brother, and he was in the field with his phone, and he was like, "Oh, so this is what it's like to frolic." And I was like, "Yeah, that is, yeah, frolicking."
Like Black
That's something to think about.
That is a revolutionary. Like, you don't see that. And in a world where the narrative around people of color, marginalized people, is a narrative of just embedded hardship and toiling and whatever, all these other things, to see
and stories of shame and guilt.
And stories of shame and guilt, to see us free. Like it looked like chains was falling off of him in that video to me. It meant so much. So yeah.
Oh, thanks for bringing this topic. This was cool. This was a good conversation.
Thank you for letting me come back.
You're welcome. HR is finished. HR is finished with the paperwork. Now you can feel no shame because HR is finished with the paperwork. How about that?
I'm fully reinstated. Thank you. And I've done all the things to make sure that I'm eligible to be reinstated. So see the process? See how it works?
All right. Okay. So we'll see you in the next 10 episodes. When you come back 10 episodes from now, leave the audience just hanging. We'll see you.
No, there'll be more. I'm also paying more attention to the things that inspire me. So hopefully I'll have some more inspiration coming.
Yeah, you gotta share that. Share that with the people.
I do.
We gotta get these downloads up too. So yeah, come share that. Thank you.
Thank you. And last thing, I've had locks since I've been gone and cut them back off. So you can't even tell I was gone.
Make sure that you go to eddiefrancis.com and you check out past episodes of For Our Edification. It's available on your favorite podcast platform. All right. Make sure you download the podcast and make sure you rate it, you share it with friends, all that good stuff. And of course, you know, there are a couple of versions of this, right? So you have the audio version. And then if you're watching it right now, then clearly you are watching it on YouTube. So make sure that you go with all of these versions of For Our Edification. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining.